Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is September 25th, which is National One-Hit Wonder Day. Now, I went through all my songs of one-hit wonders, and I have to tell you, my favorite is the 1990 version of Ice Ice Baby by The Only Vanilla Ice. What's yours? I was looking through a bunch of them, and I'll tell you, there's a lot you didn't realize were one-hit wonders. Anyway, for that, but in today's briefing, we're not covering one-hit wonders. We'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. My name is Keith Wojcicki, Global Head of Threat Intelligence. This week, we are joined by Senior Vice President George Glass, Vice President Dave Truman, Vice President Nikesh Nagar, Vice President Sarah Becker, and our analyst Avery Helwig making her debut on one of these briefings. They're all from our cyber threat intel team. We'll be covering the following trends that we're concentrating on. We're going to cover card skimming, ShroudedSnooper, the Backdoor, AMBERSQUID, coin mining, Trend Micro 0-day, SPRYSOCKS Malware, and going to round it up with some Ransomware Roundup. So with that, I'm going to turn over to George. George?
Thank you very much, Keith. We are investigating a number of card skimming campaigns that Kroll has been dealing with from our instant response engagements. Earlier last week, BlackBerry released a report on card skimming PII harvesting malware, which they refer to as silent skimmer. They reported that targeting was mostly focused on the Americas and the Asia Pacific region, and the TTPs that they observed, including exploiting web-facing applications, installation of web shells, and then the deployment of tools like Cobalt Strike and Godzilla, some others, Bad Potato, and so on, what they were seeing as part of that campaign. And many of the TTPs that BlackBerry saw actually overlap quite significantly with what Kroll sees in the IR trends. Notably, some of the overlaps that were seen by both Kroll and BlackBerry is the exploitation of Telerik applications. We actually covered this trend a little bit further back in August, but CVE 2017-9248 and 2019-18935 are still very commonly exploited vulnerabilities in Telerik applications. I think there's actually going to be some more content on the 2019 vulnerability a little bit later on in this briefing as well. So what else is Kroll seeing for these card skimming campaigns? Well, of course, we also see exploitation of WooCommerce plugins, the Magento marketplace. And in the majority of these cases, what we see is the installation of a very small JavaScript malware, either in the checkout page itself or something that is injected to relay the information that's added to the back-end database of the software to the threat actor's server. Now, something that I don't think BlackBerry covered too much, but something that we see unfortunately quite commonly is the use of known credentials or password spray against administrative portals. And that's just something that is, frankly, very easily fixed, but we see this across custom built e-commerce applications, WooCommerce, Magento, and applications built with Telerik as well. That's across all of those trends is just the use of known credentials and password spraying. Typically, organizations rarely change the administrative credentials or don't deploy MFA. So what are the mitigations that we can employ here? Well, first of all, obviously, vulnerability and patch management. I think that really goes without saying. Periodic penetration testing and red team, also a really good course of action. Deploying MFA would really help a lot of the IR engagements that we see. As I say, many of them are for known credentials and password spraying. Also updating Telerik UI to the latest version available. Something important to note is that Telerik is also included with a lot of third-party software. So it's important to build that software bill of materials for those applications. And then lastly is to consider deploying file integrity monitoring on production systems. Those production systems really should be changing key files without a proper change request in place. So I think that's a really good way of identifying when this JavaScript malwares are uploaded to those e-commerce platforms. And that's it for this story. I'll hand back to Keith.
Thanks, George. With that, I'm going to turn over to Dave. Dave?
Thanks, Keith. Cisco Talos discovered 2 new related malware samples they named HTTP Snoop and Pipe Snoop. They're tracking these samples under the name ShroudedSnooper. Cisco do not believe that the TTPs match any previously known threat actor. The malware has been found in both DLL and EXE forms. HTTP Snoop is a backdoor that interacts with Windows using low-level APIs to bind to specific URL endpoints on a machine. If any requests match the predefined URL endpoints, the malware will attempt to extract and execute hidden shellcode. The predefined URL patterns can be crafted to look like legitimate traffic, such as Microsoft Exchange web services or Office Core's Office Track. The malware has been found to masquerade as security software. In one instance, the malware was named after a component of the Cortex XDR application. The malware's communication is encrypted via XOR using a single byte key. Pipe Snoop is a backdoor that listens on the end of a named pipe and executes shellcode sent across that pipe. This enables the malware to hide its internal communications to look like common Windows communication. The malware is stealthy and designed to limit the creation of suspicious network connections by piggybacking on common network protocols. File integrity monitoring might help in the detection of initial deployment of the malware on Windows servers. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mukesh. Mukesh?
Thank you, Keith. Security researchers at Cisco Threat Research Team had observed a new crypto jacking campaign, which they have dubbed AMBERSQUID. AMBERSQUID is taking a strategic approach by setting its sight on some lesser-known AWS Amazon Web Services offerings. These services are AWS Amplify, AWS Fargate, and Amazon SageMaker. If the campaign is scaled to target all AWS regions, it could lead to organized losing tens of thousands of dollars on a daily basis. AMBERSQUID was also observed to be abusing AWS code commit by creating private Git repositories and then using them as a launch pad for crypto mining. Southeast Asia has previously witnessed instances of cryptojacking campaigns being carried out by the GUI-VIL actor. This was reported by Permiso P0 Labs back in 2023 of May. However, even though this campaign is ever so slightly different, there is very minimal overlap in the TTPs between the attacks and the suggested involvements by the threat actors. Interpol has also commented, making comments on Southeast Asia being a notable hub for cryptojacking activities. And collaborative efforts have been successfully reduced the number of infected devices in the regions. AMBERSQUID campaign demonstrates threat actors are increasingly diversifying their targets beyond the traditional compute services, such as targeting EC2 instances and S3 buckets. This shift highlights the need for heightened vigilance across all AWS services to ensure organizations are kept secured. We recommend that organizations make their security team aware of the evolving threat landscape, as well as AMBERSQUID's ability to target uncommon AWS services. We also recommend organizations to conduct regular reviews of all AWS configurations, especially for services such as AWS Amplify, AWS Fargate, as well as AWS Amazon SageMaker. We also recommend that organizations strengthen access controls and permissions within the AWS environment by employing the principle of least privilege to limit the capability of users and applications, reducing the attack surface for potential cryptojacking attempts. And finally, we encourage organizations to keep a regular review of AWS billing and resource usage report, as unusual spikes in resource utilizations or costs may indicate cryptojacking activities or other potentially malicious activities taking place within the AWS environment. That's everything from me. Thank you. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Mukesh. Now, unlike a 0-day or previously unknown, popular by demand, George will walk us through Trend Micro 0-day. George, back to you.
Thank you very much, Keith. That's very kind. So we have some a new Trend Micro 0-day with a little bit of a nuance this time. So CVE 2023-41179 has a CVSS score of 9.1 and has reportedly been exploited in the wild. It affects worry-free business security solutions and the Apex One service by Trend Micro. And according to Trend Micro, a third-party uninstaller that's bundled with the applications allows an attacker to execute arbitrary code. Now, this has been actively exploited in the wild, according to Trend Micro, and was also reported by JP-Cert as well. So we assume that in the wild, use was focused on the APAC region or even Japan specifically. They don't number the amount of exploits they've seen in the wild, but they say it is at least one. So read into that as you will. The interesting thing about this is it requires an attacker to know or obtain the credentials to the product's administrative portal before being able to conduct this attack. Again, I think there's much bigger problems if an attacker has access to those products' admin portals than just the ability to execute code in this way. But nevertheless, still worth updating and yeah, still worthy of a patch for this one. But that's it for me this time, Keith. Back to you.
Thank you very much, George. Now making her debut, we're going to talk to Avery about SPRYSOCKS. Avery?
Yes, good morning. So a threat actor being tracked as Lucia is targeting various government agencies in multiple countries through their implementation of this new Linux-tracked backdoor, SPRYSOCKS. It has been shown that SPRYSOCKS originates from Kroll's open source Windows malware and has many functions implemented to operate on Linux systems. The backdoor appears to be an amalgamation of multiple malwares, as the command and control protocol is similar to Red Leaf's, a remote access Trojan that has been reportedly infecting Windows machines. In addition, the interactive shell appears to be derived from Linux malware, Deruspi. As we can see in the table, Lucia is frequently exploiting in-day vulnerabilities. Once these vulnerabilities have been exploited, they then deploy a web shell to install Cobalt Strike, allowing remote access to the infiltrated network. The intention is to exfiltrate documents and email credentials while also deploying more advanced backdoors to conduct long-term espionage operations on their targets. Capabilities of SPRYSOCKS include collecting system information, starting an interactive shell that uses the PTY subsystem, listing network connections, managing SOCKS proxy configurations, and performing basic file operations. And Kroll recommends that we maintain systems at the latest security patch levels to minimize those vulnerabilities, and then also rolling out endpoint detection response to hosts on the network to catch the behavioral tactics, techniques, and procedures the threat actor uses. That's it for me.
Thank you, Avery. Now we're going to finish everything up with Ransomware Roundup. Sarah?
Thank you, Keith. So UNC 3944, which Kroll tracks as KTA 243, they're also known as Octopus, Scattered Swine, and Scattered Spider. They're a financially motivated threat actor group, and they're now starting to switch their tactics to focus more on ransomware deployment. So researchers state that the group has demonstrated a strong focus on stealing large amounts of sensitive data for extortion purposes, and they appear to understand Western business practices, and this is possibly due to the geographical composition of the group. This group has been active since 2022, and they've been focusing their attacks more on phone-based social engineering and SMS-based phishing. So these tactics are used to ascertain an employee's credentials using fake login pages to infiltrate that victim organization. So similar attack methods have been adopted by other threat actor groups, and one of those groups is Lapsus. UNC 3944 also uses commercial residential proxy service to gain into victims' environments. They are also primarily targeting telecom and business sectors, but they've also started expanding their targets to retail, entertainment, media, hospitality, and financial. One of the threat actors' recent attacks, they had an employee install the record stealer malware via fake software download, which then allowed the theft of the credentials to occur. So again, these fake login pages are designed to utilize phishing kits such as 8-Bait to capture credentials and send to a Telegram channel that is controlled by the threat actors. So these threat actors for UNC 3944, since they are using the commercial residential proxy services to get into these victims' environments, this is for them to evade detection as well as conduct directory and network examinations that then helps escalate privileges and maintain persistence within those systems. The latest attack from the group has users suspecting if they are possible affiliates for Black Cat, which is also known as Alpha V. So we are still following all this just to try and connect the dots for this group. That's all for me, Keith.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And a big thank you to everybody that's taken the time to tune in today's Kroll's weekly threat intelligence briefing. We do hope you found the session informative. And I do want to thank everyone that participated, Sarah, Avery, George, Makash, and Dave. Thank you very much. And we thank everyone again for coming and tuning in for next week. Take care.